back to another episode. Here, we'll be talking about the NBA today. I'm joined with my roommate from freshman year, good friend Josiah, who is very knowledgeable in the NBA world, much more than myself probably. And we're here to get you guys caught up on a lot of the stuff that has been happening in the NBA so far in early takes at this point in the season. We're going to start off with probably the most recent news that came about over the weekend. Jimmy Butler got traded from the Minnesota Timberwolves finally to the Philadelphia 76ers. Not a team you would think that was going to get him early on. There were the talks that he was going to go to Miami, maybe he was going to go to Houston, but he ends up in Philadelphia. So, Joe, what's your reaction to that? And do you think this makes the 76ers even more legit?
Well, first off, to say it's about time. They should have been traded him before the season because, as we're able to see, they're 4-9 with him. So they should have known that they weren't really going to get anywhere with him, considering the friction inside the locker room, especially when they just gave Karl Anthony Towns that big payday, and they expected he and Jimmy Butler and Andrew Wiggins to mesh and get out and win. So I'm more surprised that it happened later rather than sooner. Now, the Sixers, I'm surprised that it happened to them because early on you didn't really hear much about the 76ers. Yeah, we've heard things involving the Sixers, especially in the offseason, how they were in play for Braun, or like they can do a lot with like their flexibility with like their young players, their cap space and all that. But we never really saw Jimmy Butler going to them. It was always, the talks were really always with just the Heat. And I don't really remember another team.
I think the Rockets were mentioned in the early beginning.
Rockets as well. But at the same time, I knew, first of all, Tom Thibodeau is very stubborn. So
potentially on the hot seat now.
He should be on the hot seat. Well, I don't know about as a coach, but as director of basketball operations, I definitely believe
he needs
to step down from that position. But I knew after there were the reports that the Rockets offered up 4 first-round picks and whoever else. I think it was Eric Gordon or something.
I think they were asking for the addition of Eric Gordon in addition to the 4 first-rounders.
Yeah. I knew up front that Tom wasn't going to send Jimmy to another Western Conference team, especially one that would be fighting for a playoff spot so high. So I had a feeling he was going to be sent to an Eastern Conference team. I just didn't expect the Sixers to budge on shipping out Robert Covington and Dario Saric, especially with the bond that Embiid, Saric, Fultz, and Simmons had. So
yeah, I was a little surprised he didn't get traded before the start of the season too. Mm-hmm. You know, I definitely thought he would have gotten traded before the start of the season, but once he didn't, I really felt, he was going to end up coming down closer to the trade deadline in February, just because once the deal and talks fell through with the Rockets, they offered him the Timberwolves 4 first-round picks, which, I would have taken that in a heartbeat. I mean, it was spanned over like 8 years, like it was every other year.
I was going to say, isn't there some restriction on trading first-rounders at this point?
I'm not sure.
Now,
it's you know why? It's not yet because of the high school to pro.
Okay.
That aspect.
Okay.
But it's not finalized yet, so there's no restrictions yet.
Now,
you can still be making those trades, but whenever the last one is done, it means high school players can't go to pro until then. So, like, for example, you've traded away until 2021.
Okay.
So high school to pro isn't going to happen before 2022.
Okay. Now, let's do this. Do you think the Timberwolves turning that trade down was a blessing in disguise for the Rockets? Because if we look back to what happened with teams giving away a lot of future first-round picks, the Nets with the Celtics.
I mean, it could have,
especially
in
with,
a sense.
Especially with Chris Paul going up in age. Same thing.
It definitely could. It definitely could have benefited. It definitely would have benefited the Timberwolves, I think.
I think so as well.
From the Rockets' perspective, they're trying to, And I think if they would have been able to get Butler for that price, maybe,
It would have been a good.
maybe
price
it
to
affects
pay
Melo's.
for them now.
Maybe it affects Melo's performance, which we'll get to next.
Uh-huh.
But I definitely think it would have helped them.
Melo.
I'm not saying they would have beaten Golden State, but I think it would have given them a very, very good chance to compete with them. Moving along, we'll move into the most recent news, which came about today,
Yeah.
which is that Carmelo Anthony's time in Houston is likely coming to a close. Daryl Morey, their GM, has denied reports saying that they are going to release him or trade him,
I don't know
saying
why
they're
he
just
denied
talking
it.
about his role with the team and how much he plays and things of that nature. However, there's been reports that teammates, coaches, and the New York Times are reporting that Melo's time in Houston is done.
Mm-hmm.
If that is true and the official announcement does come sometime later this week, that would officially be Carmelo's third team in the span of 2 months, as he was, or 3 months, excuse me, because he was on Oklahoma City, got traded to Atlanta. Don't forget that.
And then bought
There
out.
was some Carmelo Anthony jerseys sold for Atlanta, I believe. He got bought out, and then he signed for a minimum, which, if you know Carmelo, you'd probably be surprised that he did that. Signed for much, much less to go to Houston, and so far he has not produced well. I believe in their most recent game he scored 2 points, and the only reason
he
that
scored 2 points on 1 for 11 shooting against the Oklahoma City Thunder.
1 for 11 shooting, and that one field goal came on the goaltend. So, Joe, if Carmelo's time is indeed done with the Rockets, where do you see him going next, and is Houston better off without him?
Well, let's just start off by saying that I don't think the Rockets should have gotten him from the jump.
Neither do
I knew there were a lot of reports saying that they felt that Melo's career would be somewhat resurrected along with such a dynamic point guard with Chris Paul and another dynamic ball handler as James Harden. Actually, even with Chris Paul as being one of his best friends, it was more or less like Carmelo will be fine here because the year before he was quoted saying he's not coming off the bench. So I think this report, it came as a shock because nobody kind of expected it, but at the same time, I feel like it's granted. Carmelo isn't really Melo anymore, so it's like the league's changed from up under him, and he still sees himself as something he was rather than something he is. So, granted, I'm not really surprised. Now, who do I see him going to? If you want me to be honest, the way he's played the past 2 years, I honestly do not know. I don't know if a championship contending team would try and bring him on and risk something that they're already doing. Because, like, Carmelo's very stubborn, and he likes things to go his way, and when they don't go his way, he's really good at portraying himself one way in front of cameras, in front of media, but when reports come out, it's something totally different. So I don't see really one of the top tier teams looking at him for the veterans minimum. And I don't know if he would be open to going to, like, not necessarily a rebuilding team, but a team that's in the lower card. Like, not like they're fighting or think they have a fighting chance at, like, the 7-8 spot in either conference. But that's really just where I'm at. Honestly, I feel like, well, I have no hope for him, to be honest with you. I think that his time has come and gone, but I know he doesn't think that. I know his close friends, Dwayne Wade, he went to social media and said that the Rockets were using him as a scapegoat for their poor performances so far, even though they have also been hit with a couple injuries also to James Harden, Eric Gordon, and also their star players have not really been as efficient as they should and can be, along with Eric Gordon as well. So, Yeah, Dwayne Wade has a point where they're using him as a scapegoat, but at the same time, Carmelo has not really been a help at all. And also, we don't know what it's been like in the locker room as well. So you can't just think that the Rockets are just doing this just because his play has been bad. Because if so, then they would have traded Eric Gordon with the 4 picks easily. So where do I see him going? Couldn't tell you. Do I think that this is the right move for the Rockets? Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I mean, in my own personal opinion, signing that new contract with the Knicks, with Phil Jackson, was the biggest mistake of his career.
100%.
Before that happened, he had a pretty successful career in Denver, where he was drafted.
Yes, correct.
And then he had an all right stint with the Knicks afterwards. But once Phil came in, his career went downhill. And some will blame it on him, but even...
On Carmelo or on Phil?
On Phil.
Okay.
But even if you look at the past 5 years of his career, he's... Not only is he not the kind of player he once used to be, but he's not the kind of player that can carry a team.
Correct.
He never has been, and he never will be. Even if, he has some kind of resurgence wherever he ends up. He's not a LeBron, and he's not a Dwayne Wade. He is a solid, you know what? He's a smaller Dwight Howard, is essentially what he is.
I'll put him
He is a smaller Dwight Howard.
I'll put him at a 1B on a championship team. A 1B to a 1A.
That's a Dwight Howard, in my opinion.
Okay.
Dwayne Wade is like a 1A.
Yes.
LeBron is obviously a 1.
Obviously.
Carmelo is a 1B. Dwight Howard is a 1B.
When they were in their primes.
When they're in their primes, or even now.
Not now. I wouldn't put Carmelo
There's
at a
no
1B
chance
now.
Carmelo was going to be great with Houston this year.
No chance at all.
No chance at all. I honestly think Houston is better off without him because
Correct.
I feel the analytics suggest, as Daryl Morey is very big on analytics, I feel the analytics suggest that Carmelo doesn't fit with them at all. I think they only got him because it would help out Chris Paul. Obviously he's good friends with him, so he can mesh with the offense. He could help them out getting some threes maybe, but it just never came about with that. Now, as to where I see him ending up, personally, I agree with you. I don't really see him going to a contender like a 76ers or a Boston or a Golden State. I don't see him going to anything like that. What I see him going to, if he indeed doesn't retire, is going to a team that is going to be competing for like a 7 or 8 seed in either conference. And wouldn't it just so happen that 2 of his buddies are going to be competing for 7 or 8 seeds throughout the season in Miami and Los Angeles?
Keep him away from Los Angeles.
Maybe he doesn't go to the Lakers, though. Maybe he goes to the Clippers. Because the Clippers could probably end up be fighting for a 7 or 8 seed come the end of the season as well.
Well, yeah, the way they're looking right now, I know it's early in the season. It's only 12, 13 games in, but they're...
Not even 18% of the way through. So
yeah, but they're still in the top 8, so you can't really just write them off so easily. I will give you that, but keep him away from the Lakers, 100%.
I want him to stay away from Miami.
They have problems of their own that they need to address and figure out, so they don't need to add another problem. And in Miami, I don't want his potential farewell tour to get in Dwayne Wade's farewell tour.
Agreed.
I don't need them to cross paths at all.
Yeah.
So I would very much resent him in Los Angeles. Miami, I just don't want him to get in the way of Wade's.
If he gets signed, he's getting signed to help ticket sales. That's just about what he's getting signed for at this point. Which is like if you see him going to like a Dallas maybe to help with ticket sales, maybe an Orlando Magic, maybe a Memphis. Even if those teams don't end up competing by this time in 2 or 3 months, a team is pretty much just going to sign him just to help out with ticket sales. Because he's a decent name and now help with tickets.
Yep.
Moving along, we're going to talk next about who's the biggest surprise so far at this point of the season. Now, we aren't even in 20 games in yet, 20% of the season in yet. However, there are some teams that are performing well beyond our expectations, the fans' expectations, and other teams' expectations. So, Joe, who is your team or teams that have surprised you the most so far this season?
Teams? Well, two teams, honestly. Well, yeah, two teams, I guess. One, the Memphis Grizzlies have really surprised me. Won't lie at all. Didn't expect them to be, I want to say, the fifth seed as of right now. Expected them to be in the bottom three, so somewhere down there with like Phoenix and whatnot. But Memphis has really surprised me. But I just hope that they can stay healthy because, usually they get played with injuries. Mike Conley sat out pretty much all last season. Marc Gasol's pretty known for getting nags here and there. And Chandler Parsons at this point needs to just give it up. He's got to have one of the worst contracts I've ever seen to barely ever play. But that's just my personal opinion. And then number two, well, I have a tie for the number two. It can either be the Sacramento Kings or the Denver Nuggets. Now, I knew the Nuggets would be fighting to be in the playoffs because they've been fighting to be in the playoffs the last 2 years. But their record has been pretty substantial right now. And so that's why I can put them as a surprise, especially with being out in the West and you have so many powerhouses or supposed to be powerhouses outside of Golden State, of course. And then the Kings have looked really good. I've seen them play maybe 2 or 3 games and their young core is looking very, very well. And I actually like the addition of Iman Shumpert there from the Kings and the Cavs trade. I want to say last year. That was actually a good addition for the Kings. So they're looking pretty good. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep it up, but for right now, Denver and Kings are mine. You?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on one of those two. I definitely think Denver is one of the more surprising teams so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew we all know they had Jokic, who signed a big contract in the offseason and really came about last season. I know they had Jamal Murray, who just dropped a 48-point game last week. It almost got to 50 in other notice of it, and he's playing out of his mind. But when you look at their roster, they're incredibly deep.
They are very deep.
I'm not saying they got the best starting five.
They are.
But when you look at their roster, they have a ton of freaking depth on that roster. They drafted Grayson Allen in the very first round.
They traded him, however. He's on the Jazz.
Now he's on the Jazz.
Yeah,
excuse me.
They did give Michael Porter Jr., even though he has to sit out this year because
they did draft Michael Porter. That is correct. That is who I was thinking of.
Their starting five consists of Jamal Murray, who just dropped 48. Let's not forget that on Kyrie Irving. Gary Harris, Will Barton, Paul Millsap, who's a credible vet, and, of course, the Joker himself. And then on the bench, they have Isaiah Thomas, who I don't think has played a game yet.
He might not have played yet, but that's not a bad backup to have in case someone needs to get spelled for a couple of minutes.
Malik Beasley has been putting in some very good rookie minutes.
Monte Morris isn't bad.
Monte Morris is good. They have Trey Lyles, who...
I think Mason Plumlee could be the most underrated one on that bench that comes off of it.
Yeah,
because he wasn't bad in Portland.
He's a good backup to the Joker for sure. He's a good backup. So yeah, the Nuggets are pretty deep. I will give you one other team though that I think is surprised people with how well they've started so far this year. I think I know where you're gonna go here. So
and that is the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, you went a different route than I thought. Okay, tell me why.
Milwaukee in the past couple of years has been the East has been down. Yes, we know, and Giannis is easily a top 10 player in the league.
Easily,
but we did not. And they always finished, and given the East is down, but the Bucks were never a bad team.
They were always around 4.
They were an okay team. They were always around
500.
500. They were always around the 6, 7, 8 seed or lower. And I think that's where a lot of people saw them ending up this season as well. Now, they very well could. But right now, at this point in the season, they are currently 10-3. Giannis is playing at MVP level. He's not dropping triple doubles like Russell Westbrook.
Oh my
He's not
gosh.
dropping 10 threes a game like Harden did.
If anybody has not seen a game Giannis has played this year so far, just go see a highlight.
He needs two dribbles to get to the bucket from half court.
Just wait until he puts a jump shot on there. Oh my god.
Exactly. I read about it on Bleacher Report the other day, saying if he is able to develop a 3-point shot, look out, he could be more dangerous than LeBron.
Yes.
Like, he would be the next big thing over, like, the next 10 years of the NBA.
Yes, without a doubt. He's still young, too.
Yeah, he's only 23, I want to say.
Something like that.
Because he's young, because he came over from Greece, so he's a foreign player. It's not like he went to college for 3-4 years and came into the league. But they're 10-3 on the season right now. They did, lose 2 games in a row or so.
He is 23 years old.
23 years old, yes, I was right. So they currently sit second in the East, only behind Toronto, who is also off to an incredible start.
You see, that's where I thought you were gonna go.
You know what? I'm not surprised by Toronto starting that well because I knew Kawhi getting there was a big addition for them with Kyle Lowry, and they have gotten the number 1 seed in the past year, and they were 2 in the previous year, I believe, and the year before that they were 3, I believe. So they've been steadily improving.
But would you not say that a lot of people's concerns was maybe the new coach alongside with does Kawhi really want to play in Toronto alongside with the departure of DeMar DeRozan and the bond that he had with Kyle Lowry and how that would work out too? To be 12-1's pretty.
It is. But
it shut a lot of haters
But if
up
you
for sure.
asked me to tell you 4 weeks into the season what is more likely to happen, Toronto sits in the top 2 in the East or Milwaukee is in the top 2 in the East,
You would say Toronto.
I would have said Toronto 10 times out of 10 times. Because Milwaukee, I predicted in my first video I did of this entire series, I predicted Milwaukee would finish 6th in the East.
6th behind who? I had him at 4 or 5.
Go check out the video after this, and you can see who I have him in there. But Milwaukee is definitely my second team.
Oh, I think I know.
That I'm most surprised by with their start to the season.
Now, wait. Is this all good surprises or is this bad surprises?
Well, bad surprise I think is going to lead into our next category, which is who is the biggest disappointment or disappointments so far into the season.
Disappointments.
So I will let you start off first and tell me who your biggest disappointments are so far in this season.
Okay, I'm going to go with 2. One from the East and one from the West. The West is just because of right now, but I think they're going to turn it around. That's the Houston Rockets. Obviously, they took the Warriors to a 7-game series in the Western Conference Finals last year, and
should have beaten them.
Yes, to a degree, but everybody, even along with the losses of Trevor Ariza, they lost pretty much their perimeter defender alongside with PJ Tucker, who can at this point guard 1 through 5 somehow, and Chris Paul, and the question was who was going to fill that void. Well, it doesn't really look like anybody's filling that void, considering they have one of the worst defenses in the NBA. And if you just watch how they play on defense, it's just not it. So, and it's more or less like they've had games where they shouldn't have gotten blown out in a manner. Like, if their offense is not clicking, like, perfect, then they will get blown out. So, and also, let's not forget that the fight in the beginning of the year with the Lakers, I thought that would have somewhat, like, gotten a spark underneath them to, like, really elevate them, but they've seemed to decline, which is also why I'm curious to see if Melo is leaving and how they will react to that. That's why I have them kind of teetering on there. Now, my worst team in the NBA right now. We all knew the Cavs weren't going to be good, so I'm not surprised about that. But the Washington Wizards.
Sorry, Tapari.
The Washington Wizards. their roster has not really changed at all. They got rid of Marcin Gortat, which I thought was a good thing considering the issues that he had with their star player, John Wall. And there was no secret about that at all. Marcin Gortat took to Twitter last year when John Wall was out injured, and Marcin Gortat let off like these tweets like good team win and all that. So I thought that was a really good thing of them to do. They brought in Austin Rivers, who I felt like was going to be a credible backup. And they also brought in Dwight Howard. Now, Dwight Howard's not what he was, but he's not a bad starting five either.
Not to mention he just started playing.
Yeah,
too.
he just did start playing too. He's good defensively somewhat. He can hold down the middle. He can get rebounds. He can catch lobs. So it's like, I don't understand where the problem would lie, especially with John Wall. You can throw a lob up to him when you're attacking because defenses like to collapse on you because you attack at full speed with your head. So I thought that would have been a good fit alongside with Bradley Beal, who is a very good two guard. And I thought the other pieces, Otto Porter, Kelly Oubre, Markieff Morris, I thought those were gonna be good too. I don't know what the hell happened. What is their record again, please?
They are
3-9. They are 3-9. They were supposed to be in the top 8.
0-2 as well, at least.
They were supposed to be in the top 8 of the Eastern Conference, especially with the Cavs taking a steep decline with the departure of LeBron James. It was more or less like now that LeBron's gone and like the East Slayer is gone, we had teams like we had Boston up top, obviously, because of how stacked their team is and what they had last year against Braun. But we had the Celtics, the Raptors, the Bucks were somewhat in there, the Sixers, and then we had the Wizards because of how consistent they have been with not only their play but with their roster. Their roster has not really changed at all. They've gotten rid of a somewhat cancer in Marcin Gortat and brought in a Dwight Howard. Now, granted, we also have had teams who have said that Dwight Howard causes problems in the locker room, but we have not heard of that with the Wizards so far, so we can't just insinuate that right now. So, with their 3-9 record, you have an all-star point guard in John Wall. You have a should-be all-star shooting guard in Bradley Beal. You have Otto Porter with probably the worst contract in the NBA. I don't remember what the Brooklyn Nets do at him, but they really tried to.
I thought Chandler Parsons had the worst contract.
Okay, he has one. I say he has one of the worst contracts that I've ever seen personally. But Otto Porter, if I'm not mistaken, I think he signed like a 3-year, like either 3 or 4 year, close to like $100 million or something like that. I don't know. I don't care. He does not deserve all of that money. I'm gonna fact check that really, really quickly. He's making $26 million this season. Now, $26 million this season, he's making $1 million more than Bradley Beal, and he's making $7 million more than John Wall right now. Now, granted, John Wall's Supermax kicks in next year where he'll be making an absurd amount of money, so I'm just going to ignore that part. But you're making that much money, and you're not producing what you should be producing. So, with the consistent roster that they've had, consistent coaching, even though I feel like Scott Brooks is not really fit to coach that team because he's more of a passive coach and you kind of need confrontation to coach John Wall and Bradley Beal, who there have been rumors that they can't play together even though they've both come out and refuted that. But you kind of need to like put this team in their place, instill a foundation of something that you can follow. And I feel like they've been at a consistent, like, even platform, and then this year, for some reason, it just blew up, and I don't understand what happened. At this point, I'm just giving up on them. They're 3-9. Granted, they're in the East, and the 8th spot is up for grabs, so they can go on a good run mid-season, early mid-season. I don't know. But the way they're looking right now is completely horrible.
So, I agree with you on the Rockets. To pretty much, you hit the nail on the coffin of that. And I'll tell you the easy problem what's wrong with the Wizards. It's threefold. Number one, their defense is probably the worst in the league. Every game this season, except for one, they have given up 100 points, even in a win. The only team to not score 100 points on them is the Knicks, which should show you how bad the Knicks are.
Yeah,
And yet the Knicks are ahead of them right now in the standings in the East. What does that say? On top of that, number two, you're right. Scott Brooks is not the right coach to be coaching the Wizards.
No.
He is not. Now, third, and this might be a little on the edge,
Let's see.
but I think John Wall could be a problem. Think about it. Just think about it. In the last couple of years, there's been multiple. Gortat was not the first time we heard that someone was having issues with John Wall.
Correct.
How many times did we hear about Bradley Beal, for example? He wasn't getting along with John Wall. There were times when they went on road trips and they didn't even talk together, and they stayed in the same double room or with double beds, and they wouldn't talk to each other. And they're the 1 and 2 on the team. If I'm Washington, I don't want to pay him the supermax, but I know I can get something for him.
He already signed it though.
You can
It's
still
done.
trade him.
You can't still trade him, but what team is going to want to pay 37 million one season, 40 million the next, 43 the next,
A team with cap space.
and then a player option for 46 million the following season?
Well,
What
player
team?
option. Well, listen, it's a player option, and they can keep him for 2 years. Try to attract someone in free agency next year when everyone is going to be available, from Durant to Kyrie, whether or not he stays in Boston.
They're not going to have the
Kawhi?
money though. They're literally paying Bradley Beal, John Wall, and Otto Porter a collection of close to $70 million.
I'm aware of that. But at the point, too, maybe he goes to a contender this year, and he's on there, and then they release him. Because if you release him, you don't have as much dead money, given you have to pay him a little bit, but you don't have as much dead money on there as you do in, like, baseball. Where in baseball, if you cut someone, you still have to pay them the remainder of the money. I.e., if you have $75 million left on your contract, you're paying them $25 million over those last 3 years. That's not how it works in the NBA. If he's still owed $160 million, if you cut him, he's going to get some of that $160 million, but he's not getting all of that money.
Correct.
Because it's not, even though NBA contracts do have, that's why when you hear about NBA contracts being announced by Woj, they say 5 years, $100 million with $80 million guaranteed.
80 mil
The
guaranteed.
million
Yes.
that's guaranteed money is what he would get. Now, the Supermax is a lot of money, obviously, but if the Wizards really want to do something, you can clear up a little bit of cap space. Maybe you get rid of Otto Porter's contract. Who knows?
That's exactly what I was gonna suggest.
You'd have to get a lot of players or draft picks in addition for it.
You know what?
It'd be hard though.
Do you know what I'm shocked at, and what I wanted to see happen? I wanted the Wizards to be in play for Jimmy Butler. I feel like they could have.
They could have potentially. Butler's contract is not. Butler's contract is more comparable to John Wall's than it is Kelly Oubre's, I believe.
But he also only has 1 year on it too. So
Correct.
If they really wanted to go in a different direction, they could have been from up under Otto Porter's contract, brought in.
But the problem
Jimmy
is, I don't
Butler.
think Minnesota could financially afford it. Because between Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, they got $70 million.
Yeah, that is-
and the cap is.
That is true.
The cap is, I believe, it's 100 and.
10
It's like 102 million.
102.
So 102 million, and you got 75 mil tied up between two players. You got to pay 13 other players somewhere between 35 million. Not only would you have had to take Oubre's contract and switch Butler, but that's 9 million extra that they would have been adding on Minnesota. So you would have had to take even more players in return and probably given up a draft pick for taking the financial burden of it. So if they got rid of Kelly Oubre, for example, and for Jimmy Butler, the T-Wolves would have asked for a first-round draft pick maybe as well because of the risk and all the money that they're getting tied up with Oubre then.
That is true.
So-
well, that's why the NBA is so great. You can bring on 3 teams, 4 teams. You can get.
Let me tell you one other team, though, that I'm a little bit surprised about, or I'm a little disappointed that they haven't started out quite as highly. It's not bad because it's only 12, 13, 14 games in the year. But I'm surprised that they're 6-6 and they're not 8-4 or 9-3. And you can go check out my other video, too, because I projected that they would finish pretty high. And that's the Utah Jazz. Now, for those that live under a brick, the Utah Jazz were easily one of the biggest surprises in all of football, or basketball last year. Excuse me, we have football playing in the background here. In all of basketball. And they have, we said earlier that Denver had a very good starting lineup in depth. Utah's, you could argue, is even better. Just listen to this roster. All right, they have Grayson Allen, who they got via trade. They got Tony Bradley, who, don't get me started on him. He went to UNC for 1 year, averaged 10 minutes a game, and gets picked in the first round. They got Jay Crowder, who I believe comes off the bench for them. They got Dante Exum, who is a backup to Ricky Rubio, who they signed in the offseason. They got Derek Favors at a power forward. They got Rudy Gobert at center. They got Donovan Mitchell
who
at
was the
shooting
defensive
guard.
player of the year last year.
Defensive player of the year. They got Donovan Mitchell, who should have won Rookie of the Year last year because Ben Simmons technically isn't a rookie. He's in his 3rd year. He redshirted his 1st year. It still counts. And they got Georges Niang, who is from Iowa State and is not bad at shooting forward. He can come in and play. And they got Joe Ingles, who in the opening night,
He's a bucket.
he
all
got 26, 28 points off the bench. So I'm a little surprised that, and they're one of the taller teams in the NBA too. I mean, if you take out Raul Neto, who's 6'1", they don't have a guy on and Mitchell, who's 6'3", and Naz Michu Long, who's 6'4", they don't have a guy on there that's under 6'6", and Rubio. So of the 15 players, 11 of them are 6'6" and taller. It's still early, like I said. I expected Utah to be up where Milwaukee is right now, and Milwaukee to be kind of where Utah is, in a sense, at this point in the season.
I wouldn't expect them to be 10-3 though.
Maybe not 10-3,
Not
9-3 though, 8-4.
8-4, something like that, something around
and
there.
they'd be up higher in the West. They'd probably be, like a 3 or 4 at the moment. But right now, they are currently sitting out of the playoff picture. And again, listen, it's really early. We haven't even played 15 games yet in the season, so it's not easy to analyze stuff. But I would have liked to see a little bit more from Utah. I ultimately think they will turn it around, though, and they will get up to that, top 3, top 4 seeding in the West by, 2 months from now or by the end of the regular season.
Easily.
But a little surprised that they haven't started out better.
Question. Now that Jimmy Butler's gone and the addition of Robert Covington and Dario Saric, what do you think the Timberwolves will do sitting at 4-9 right now?
They will finish at 41-43. Or no, that's not possible.
41-41?
41-41, excuse me. I mixed up how many games they play.
So
they're probably going to get to 500.
out of the playoffs, though. Not in the playoffs. Because I don't think 8 seed, with the West being this deep this year, I don't think 8 seed will be 500.
You could say it would be, though. You can make an argument for it. Now, in my video of it, when I predicted this, obviously I had Golden State making the playoffs.
Obviously.
I definitely had Portland making the playoffs. I definitely had Oklahoma City making the playoffs. And I had Denver making it, who are 4 of the top 8 right now. But you look amongst the other teams that are in it, with Minnesota obviously going to be competing. Houston, you expect to be competing for it. You have the Pelicans. You would expect to compete for it. They're not a great team, but Anthony Davis to them is what LeBron is to the Lakers.
Anthony Davis is top 3 best players in the NBA, in my opinion. So
he's top 5 in mine. I don't know about top 3, but that's another topic for another day.
Definitely.
But Pelicans, Houston, Timberwolves. Obviously, the Jazz are going to be up there competing. You'll have the Lakers will be in it around that time of the season. Maybe the Clippers are in it. The Spurs, obviously, you can never count them out. So I said 4 teams that I said definitely are going to make it. And if you look at the teams that I don't think are going to make it, which is Phoenix, Dallas, Sacramento, That's 3 teams. So 3 and 4 is 7. They got 15 teams in the West. There's 7, 8 teams that are competing for the other 4 spots. I definitely do see that the 8 seed is going to be sitting right around 41, 43, 44 wins. I definitely see that's where it's happening. I think the top 4 are going to be 55 and above.
Top
5?
4, 55?
Yeah.
Top 2, 55. Third, I'll give 52, 53.
All right, so top 4 have 50 or more.
Correct. I will give you that.
And then 5 and 6, I'm going to say get over 45.
High 40s, maybe break 50 even.
Maybe. Mm-hmm. And then 7 and 8 are going to be under 45, but they're going to be above 40, which is where I think they could fall, but I don't know if they will. Well, we have to see how well they play and get a sample size of how well they play after getting rid of Butler and how Covington and Sarge mesh with that lineup. So thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back shortly with some more of the NBA this season with part 2 of our NBA updates.